I didn't want to be right. I swear to you that when I recorded that video, when I talked about what Jesus showed me, deep down in my heart, I hoped I was wrong, that people would call me crazy and that nothing I said would happen. But it happened. It's only been a few days. The whole world watched, and most people didn't understand what they were seeing. But you who had your eyes open understood. I received hundreds of messages, people writing in the early hours of the morning with racing hearts, saying that they saw it, that they recognized it, that they felt that same tightness in their chest that I described when Jesus down, and that nothing I said would happen. But it happened. It's only been a few days. The whole world watched, and most people didn't understand what they were seeing. But you who had your eyes open understood. I received hundreds of messages, people writing in the early hours of the morning with racing hearts, saying that they saw it, that they recognized it, that they felt that same tightness in their chest that I described when Jesus showed me the vision. It was no coincidence that you felt this way, because what appeared at that opening ceremony in Mexico was not a cultural spectacle. It was a ritual, and I need to speak about what I saw, not as an analyst, not as an expert, as someone to whom Jesus showed in advance what was being prepared, and who is now seeing it fulfilled with my own eyes before the whole world, the Azteca Stadium. When the narrator pronounced that name, I felt something, because the Aztecs weren't just an advanced civilization. They were a people who offered human lives to their gods, men, women, children, climbing the stone steps of those pyramids to be delivered to forces that the Bible calls by their rightful name: principalities, powers, princes of darkness. Paul wrote this in Ephesians 6. He wasn't being poetic. He was describing a reality that existed long before any World Cup, long before any civilization that man built. And that night, in that stadium that bears the name of those people, what I saw on the screen made me close my eyes and take a deep breath, because that was exactly what Jesus had shown me. Not the stadium, not the artist, but the structure behind it all. I saw the round stage, and the cameras showed it from up there, and the whole stadium looked like a huge open eye facing the sky, an eye that wasn't looking down. It was receiving, as if there was something above that place, being invited to come down. And then came the pyramid in the center of the stage, with the World Cup trophy on top. I had to stop for a moment when I saw that, because the cup wasn't placed just anywhere. It was placed exactly where? In another time, in another ceremony. They would have placed an offering at the top of the altar, and a woman, presented as a priestess, declared live to the entire world, "We here in Mexico welcome you to this ancestral land where rituals, movements, and spirits prevail. The spirits prevail. People," she said it in no uncertain terms, with billions of people watching, and most thought it was a nice welcoming phrase, but it wasn't. It was a spiritual declaration. It was a door opening. It was exactly the kind of thing the Bible tells us to recognize and turn away from. In Deuteronomy 18, God was very clear with his people. He said that there should be no one among them who consulted spirits, who performed rituals for forces that are not himself, who opened portals to what does not come from the light. And there it was, at the opening of the World Cup, live. And then the narrator said something that I still can't get out of my head. He said the lawn was being consecrated, that a spirit was receiving the energy of the entire planet. Consecrated. This word is not neutral. To consecrate means to set apart for a purpose, to dedicate to something or someone. And the grass of that World Cup was dedicated, live, to a spirit that is not the God of the Bible. And you know what bothered me the most? It wasn't the ritual itself, it was people's reaction. Nobody stopped. Nobody questioned anything. The cameras kept rolling. The commentators kept smiling. And billions of people at home kept watching as if it were normal, as if it were just part of the show. And this is where what Jesus told me in the vision makes even more sense now than it did when he told me. He told me that the deception won't come disguised as deception. It will arrive with a celebratory feel, with beautiful music, with famous artists, with colorful lights, with a production so impressive that no one stops to think about what is being said behind it all. And what was being said, it was an invitation for very ancient spiritual forces that the Bible describes with precision to come and inhabit that event, that lawn, those stands, and through the screens, the homes of each person watching without knowing what was being revealed. I said in the previous video that something was going to happen in the sky during the final, a light. He said it wasn't going to be fireworks. It wasn't going to be a special effect. It was going to be something the cameras would capture without understanding what they were filming, something that would make the players stop in the middle of the field and look up. I said that. And now that the opening has confirmed everything I said about the symbols, I need you to understand the weight of what comes next. Because if they did that at the opening, what do you think is being prepared for the final? Jesus showed me that stadium with a clarity that I still feel in my heart. And he showed me something that I couldn't fully describe in the first video because I didn't have enough words. I'll try now. That dark energy network I saw above the stadium, that structure that pulsed as if it were alive, it wasn't there by chance. It was there because it was built, brick by brick, event by event, ceremony by ceremony. Everything you saw at the opening in Mexico was just another brick in this construction. The serpent on stage, the priestess consecrating the lawn, the spirit being invoked by name, the pyramid with the cup as an offering. Each symbol was a stone placed in a foundation that has been under construction for decades. And the final will be the roof. Jesus told me this with a seriousness that I have never forgotten. I said, what they're building isn't visible to the naked eye, but it's real. And when it's complete, it will be used in a way that will confound even those who love me. I asked, how can you confuse those who love you? And he responded with something that I needed to sit down and absorb. I said, because what will appear in that stadium during the final will use the language that my people understand. You will use words that sound like my words. You will use feelings that resemble my feelings. And there will be people who have gone to church their whole lives, who raised their children in the faith and who know the Bible by heart, who will fall to their knees thinking they are worshiping me, and they won't be. I was speechless when he said that, because I know people like that. You know some too. Maybe your mother is like that, your father, your 70-year-old grandmother who has never missed a church service in her life. And Jesus was telling me that these people, exactly these people, are the main target of what is being prepared for the final. In Matthew 24:24, Jesus said in his own words, "For false Christs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect, if possible, even the chosen ones." He didn't say that the chosen ones will be deceived. He said that the deception will be so convincing, so sophisticated, so close to the truth, that it will be able to tempt even those who belong to God. And what appeared at the opening of that World Cup? It was the rehearsal. The final will be the main event. I received so many messages after the first video that I couldn't sleep properly for days. Not out of pride, out of weight. Because what people wrote wasn't just amens and praise, it was a cry. Silent cries written in the early hours of the morning by people who watched the video alone in the dark with racing hearts, thinking about their children who don't believe, about their grandchildren who have never been to church, about their husbands who think it's all an exaggeration. A woman wrote, "I heard it, I'm awake, but my children are sleeping and I don't know how to reach them." I read that message 3 times because I know that weight. It's the weight of knowing something and not being able to make the person you love believe it. It's the weight of seeing danger approaching and not being able to carry the other person away from it. And then I remembered what Jesus told me in the vision. He said that God's children were not called to save others. They were called to pray for others. And there is a huge difference between those two things. To save requires that the other person wants to be saved. Prayer demands nothing from others. It demands everything from you. And in Luke 18:1, Jesus was very clear about this. It is necessary to pray always and not give up. Always. Not just when I feel like it. Not just when the situation seems favorable. Always. And what comes after the World Cup final will require exactly this kind of prayer. The prayer that doesn't falter. The prayer that continues even when your son doesn't answer the phone. Even when your grandson laughs when you talk about God. Even when your husband changes the channel when the subject is Jesus. Continues. Because Jesus showed me something about those who are asleep that gave me more hope than anything else I saw in that vision. It showed me that many of those who sleep today will be awakened by what is coming, not gently, not comfortably, but they will wake up. And when they wake up, they'll need to find someone who is already standing, someone who already knew, someone who prayed for them during the years they laughed. And that someone could be you. Another comment that stuck in my head was from someone who wrote, "The scariest part of all was when you said that a person can lose the ability to hear God's voice. That made me stop, because this person understood what most people didn't. The greatest danger of what is coming is not physical. It is not political. It is not economic. That's it. It's waking up one day and calling on the name of Jesus and feeling silence, not because he left, but because the thread was cut little by little, choice by choice, distraction by distraction, until the voice became so distant that it seemed like it never existed. And in Revelation 3:20, Jesus said, 'Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in to him and eat with him, and he with me. If anyone hears, not all, some.' Because there comes a point when the door becomes so heavy on the inside from so much accumulated sin, from so much ignored silence, from so many choices made without consulting, that the person still hears the knocking, but no longer has the strength to open it. And Jesus told me that what is being prepared for after this final will accelerate this process in millions of people at the same time. That's why the instruction he gave me is so urgent, because it's not about watching or not watching the final. It's not about agreeing or disagreeing with what I'm saying. It's about a decision that each person needs to make now, while the wire is still intact, while the voice is still clear, while the door is still open. And that decision is simple, not easy. Simple. Deciding that his voice is worth more than anything else that will compete for attention in the coming months. It's worth more than the news. It's worth more than social media. It's worth more than the opinions of others. It's worth more than the fear of what's to come. Because whoever has his voice within them doesn't need to fear what's outside. And it was here that Jesus told me something he hadn't yet told me in the first video. What's coming will be frightening for those who don't know me. For those who do know me, it will be confirmation of everything I've always said. And confirmation doesn't frighten. Confirmation strengthens. And then he showed me the last thing. The thing I packed last, because it's the heaviest to carry. And it's about what will happen inside the churches in the days following the final. Not outside of them, inside. Because the deception that is coming will not knock on church doors asking to come in. It'll be inside already. And it was here that Jesus showed me something I hadn't yet been able to say aloud. Not even for my sister. Not even for the person closest to me. I kept this to myself for weeks. I cried about it alone. I prayed to God 1,000 times that I had misunderstood, that it was my interpretation, that it wasn't what I thought it was, but it wasn't acting. It was clear. He took me inside a church, not one specific church. It was like all of them at once, big, full, with seats occupied from front to back, a brightly lit stage, a band playing, a pastor at the front with open arms. It was a normal service, exactly how millions of people will be experiencing it on the day of the final, because the final will be on a Sunday afternoon, and many churches, instead of closing their doors and praying, will turn on their big screens. They will broadcast the final to the congregations as a celebration, as a gathering, as a way to be together. And it was here that Jesus squeezed my hand with a force that I felt in my very bones. And he said, "Look what's going to happen." I watched the broadcast begin. I saw the members sitting with their soda cups in their hands, children on their laps, the normal joy of a group of people who know and like each other. And then the light appeared in the sky above the stadium. And I saw something that I will never be able to fully describe. I saw the reaction of the people inside the church. It wasn't astonishment, it wasn't questioning, it was immediate adoration, automatic, as if that light had entered through the screens and touched something inside each person at the same time. I saw hands rising, I saw tears running down their faces. I saw the pastor in front looking at the screen with his eyes wide open and declaring, "It's him. He's back." And the entire congregation fell to their knees, crying, praising, with such a beautiful peace on her face that it hurt to look, because I knew what they didn't know. It wasn't him. In 2 Thessalonians 2:9, Paul wrote about this with a precision that gave me chills when I remembered it after the vision. The coming of the lawless one will be according to the working of Satan, with all power and signs, and lying wonders, signs and lying wonders, not signs that seem wrong, not wonders that seem evil, signs that seem right, wonders that seem divine, so convincing, so powerful, so full of a peace that seems supernatural, that even those who know the Bible will need more than knowledge to resist. You'll need a relationship. And it was here that Jesus told me the most important thing in the whole vision. The difference between those who will recognize it and those who won't be who has read the most Bibles. It won't be who has been to church the most times. It won't be who knows the most verses by heart. It will be the one who heard me speak in silence. I kept it. Who heard me speak in silence. Because there is a difference between knowing about God and knowing God. You can know everything about a person, know their history, know what they like, know what they do, and yet never have heard their voice. And when someone appears imitating that person with similar gestures, with similar words, with a presence that resembles the original, those who have never heard the real voice will accept the copy. Whoever heard the true voice will know in time. And Jesus told me something that I repeat to myself every time fear strikes. My voice has a frequency that no other voice can imitate. Those who truly know me don't need analysis. They don't need theology. The heart recognizes it, like a child who hears their mother calling in the middle of a crowd and knows it's her even before turning around. That's how it's going to be. And in the comments of the first video, I saw many people writing that they are awake, that they heard, that they are prepared. But there's one thing I need to say to whoever wrote this. Being awake isn't enough. You can be awake and still be taken, because the deception that they are prepared. But there's one thing I need to say to whoever wrote this. Being awake isn't enough. You can be awake and still be taken, because the deception that is coming will not attack those who are sleeping. They are already lost for this moment. The deception will attack those who are awake, those who know, those who foresaw, those who warned others. He will use his own knowledge against them. It will arrive with biblical references, with the right language, with the right demeanor, and it will say exactly what a person who is waiting for Jesus' return wants to hear. And it was here that Jesus gave me the final instruction for those who are awake. These: don't trust what you see. Don't trust what you feel. Trust what you know of me in silence. Because on the day of that event, what you see will be too impressive to question. What you feel will be too convincing to resist. The only anchor that will hold is the one that was planted before. To resist. The only anchor that will hold is the one that was planted before, in the moments when there was no spectacle, just you and me, just you and me. That phrase stuck in my heart like a stone in my chest, because I honestly wondered, do I have those moments? Do I have those hours when it's just God and me, with nothing around, no music, no videos, no worship, nothing but his voice and the surrounding silence? Does my faith depend on the environment? That's a difficult question, but it's the right question, because Jesus didn't tell me that those who will resist are the strongest. He didn't tell me that they are the most intelligent. He didn't tell me that they are the ones who know the Bible best. He told me that they are the ones who have a secret place with him. In Matthew 6:6, he himself said, "But you, when you pray, go into your room and closing your door, pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you." The room, the closed door, the secret, not the stage, not the microphone, not the screen. The small place where nobody sees. And those who have this place will weather what is coming with a peace that will make no sense to the world around them, not because they are special, but because they are well known. And being known by God is the only protection that will work when everything that seems sacred ceases to be. I need to end this video with something that's been in my heart ever since I got back from that night. Jesus showed me many frightening things: the opening, the ending, the leader, the collapse, the division within the churches. But the last image he left me with wasn't one of destruction. It was that small house again, with the candle, with the Bible open, with the family gathered. And this time I was able to see the faces of the people inside the house. They weren't the faces of perfect people. They weren't the faces of saints. They were the faces of ordinary people with marks of weariness, with difficult stories behind their eyes, with questions that still had no answers. But they were together. And about them, that peace that defies explanation. And Jesus told me the last thing he told me in that whole vision. Tell them that the size of the house doesn't matter. The size of the family doesn't matter. The size of the faith doesn't matter. What matters is that when the world is in darkness, their candle will be lit. And a candle in the dark doesn't need to compete with anything. She simply shines. And that's enough. I'm here again, not because I'm brave. I'm here because I saw the opening of that World Cup with my own eyes. And every symbol that appeared on that stage in Mexico was exactly what Jesus told me would appear. Each. And if the opening was like this, the final will be unlike anything this generation has ever experienced. You don't have to believe me, but keep in mind what has been said here, because when that light appears in the sky above that stadium, and it will appear, you'll remember this moment. And at that moment, one thing will matter, just one. If you recognize his voice in the silence, if you know, you'll know what to do. If you don't know, there's still time. The final of the 2026 World Cup will be on July 19th. Today is not July 19th. There's still time. And he is waiting.
And I'm just going to replay this part of this video. It's about 5 years ago. So here we go.
Hello, brothers and sisters. Today is April 18th, 2020. And I just felt led to reshare part of this video that I posted 7 months ago. So here it is. So in the second dream, I saw Trump and his daughter Ivanka. Then I saw a calendar, but not the month. I just saw the dates: 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. Everyone thought that Ivanka's birthday was over, but then Trump started counting out loud while looking at the dates I saw on the calendar. 15, 16, 17, 18, and then he said extra loudly, 19.
Okay. I've shared this dream.
After I published the second video, I thought the messages would decrease. The exact opposite happened. People started writing to me sharing dreams, experiences, and questions I never imagined receiving. But there was one message in particular that made me realize I hadn't yet shared the most important part of the vision. She said, "You weren't the only person who received a warning." That same week, many people sent me a video of a brother in Christ who also claimed to have received a vision. He spoke about a major earthquake that would hit Venezuela. When I saw that video, I kept it in my heart. A short time later, what he described happened. At that moment, I understood that God continues to speak to different people in different places so that the same message reaches as many lives as possible. And you know what else caught my attention? This same brother also said he received a vision related to the World Cup final. When I heard that, I immediately remembered what Jesus had shown me. I'll show you that video in a little while, and then I'll come back to explain why this confirmation affected me so much. Many people believe that all of this is a figment of our imagination, that they are coincidences or thoughts in our heads. I understand those who think that way, but those who have received a vision from God know that it is impossible to forget. We are no better than anyone else. We are not special. We have simply been reached by the mercy of Christ to transmit what we have received. And before I continue, I want to ask you something. If God has ever spoken to you through a dream, a vision, or an experience that profoundly impacted your life, write in the comments. I want to read your testimony. Often, one person's story strengthens the faith of another who was about to give up.
El mundial será el sesgo de la historia para una macropandemia llamada norovirus y matará a mucha gente como la peste negra. Comenzarán desde ya para que en el 2027 haya ese suceso a mediados de enero a abril. Así dice el Señor.
Vienen cosas peores. Niño que predijo terremotos en Venezuela advierte sobre tragedia en el mundial.
Did you see this video? And now I need you to pay attention to what I'm about to say, because I'm not here to repeat what I've already said in the previous two videos. I'm here because what Jesus showed me after the second video went viral is twice as powerful as everything I've said so far. Twice. And it took me days to have the courage to say that out loud. Before continuing, I need to talk about something that's happening in this World Cup that the whole world is talking about, something that appeared on social media and that I couldn't ignore when I saw it. Many people have already talked about the opening ceremony in Mexico, about the pyramid, about the priestess, about the lawn being consecrated. But there's something that few people have stopped to notice carefully. The mascots of this World Cup. Their names are Mimi and Peek, and at first glance they seem like just animated characters to attract children. But when you stop and look more carefully, when you research the origin of each element, one thing becomes clear. It was not a random choice. Their design incorporates symbols that appear repeatedly in occultism: the shape of the eyes, the specific colors, the posture, details that on their own might seem coincidental, but along with everything that happened at the opening, along with everything that has been presented in this World Cup so far, they form a language, the same language that I saw in the vision. Language that is not directed at the people who are watching. It is directed toward the spiritual forces that are being invited. In Ephesians 2:2, Paul calls the devil the prince of the power of the air, the one who operates in the systems of this world, the one who influences culture, entertainment, the symbols that children learn to recognize even before they can read. And when I saw the mascots for this World Cup, I immediately remembered something Jesus told me in my first vision. The enemy always begins with children, not with violence, with familiarity, with characters, with colors, with music. Because what enters a child's heart stays forever, and what stays forever shapes the adult that child will become. That chilled me to the bone. Because children today are hugging these mascots without knowing what they are hugging. And the parents are allowing it without knowing what they are allowing. Now tell me, did you feel anything different when you saw these mascots? Write below what you felt, because I know many of you felt something you couldn't name. Many people wrote to me after the second video saying they were tired, that they didn't want to be in this world anymore, that they watched their children sleeping and cried in the middle of the night without being able to explain why, that they felt a weight that had no name. A woman wrote just this: I no longer want to live on this planet. I read that sentence and stood there for a long time, not because it scared me, but because I recognized it, because I've been there before Jesus met me that night when my heart stopped. I was exactly there, not in violent despair, but in a weariness so profound, so accumulated, so nameless, that continuing seemed heavier than any alternative. What surprised me was discovering that this message wasn't from a single person. There were dozens, people who love God, who know the Bible, who have gone to church their whole lives, who have never abandoned Jesus, and even so, they are exhausted from being here. Another message that stuck in my head was from a mother who wrote, My son is watching the World Cup with his friends. I'm praying, but I don't know how to reach him. I read that and thought of my own mother. During the years I drank, during the years she prayed for me without my knowing, during the years she knelt while I was on the floor. She felt that weight too, for sure. And it was thinking about these two things, the exhaustion of those who want to go home and the pain of those who are praying for children who cannot hear, that I knelt down one night this week, not with a wish list, just by weight. And that's when Jesus spoke again, not like in the main vision, not with images and places and symbols. It was different, more intimate, like when someone you love very much sits next to you in the dark, without saying anything for a while. And when they speak softly. He said, I know you're tired. I saw every message. I heard every prayer that was said after the videos. I saw the mothers who stayed up all night. I saw those who cried alone, unable to explain why. I saw those who wrote that they don't want to be here anymore. And then he said something that made me cry in a way that was different from all the others. This tiredness they feel is not weakness, it's a sign. It's the spirit within them recognizing that this world is not their place. This desire to go home is real, because I myself placed this desire within them when I created them. It's not despair, it's longing for something they haven't yet seen with their physical eyes, but that their spirit already knows. I was stunned by that, longing for something they haven't seen yet. And in Hebrews 11:13, the Bible describes exactly that about the men and women of faith who came before us, confessing that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth, foreigners and pilgrims. It's no coincidence that this weariness of the world is so common among those who truly love God. It's because they are deep down strangers here. They were born for a place they haven't yet reached, and the spirit within them feels the difference between where they are and where they belong. This feeling is not depression. It is not a lack of faith. It is the clearest sign that the Spirit of God is alive within you. And Jesus told me something that I needed to sit down and absorb. But exhaustion isn't a license to let go. It's an invitation to get closer. Those who are weary of being in the world are precisely the ones who need me most right now, not tomorrow. Now, in the silence of the room, in the early hours of the morning when the wake keeps you awake, in that moment when it seems like no one else understands. That's where I am. Always summary. And then he talked about the children, about those who are sleeping while their mothers are on their knees. Every mother's prayer that reaches me is a seed planted in her child's heart. She doesn't see it. He doesn't feel it yet, but it's there, and a moment will come, and it is coming, when what is being prepared for this period will shake many things that were dormant, and when it shakes, many will awaken, and the first thing they will remember is the mother's prayer, the father's prayer, the voice that always called them back. No prayer is ever lost. None. If you have a child, a grandchild, a husband, someone you love who is spiritually asleep, write that person's name below. Just the name. I will pray. And God sees every name that is written. But then, after that more intimate moment, Jesus turned to me with a seriousness that I hadn't seen since the first vision. And he said, "Now I need to show you what I haven't shown you yet, what I've been saving for when the time is right. And that time is now. Because what's coming after the World Cup final isn't just what I've shown you before, it's double." I was breathless. I asked, "What do you mean by double?" And he answered me with that voice that is both firm and full of love. What I showed you before was the beginning, the euphoria, the leader, the system, the collapse. All of that will happen. But what I didn't show you is what comes along with all of that at the same time. Because the enemy won't act sequentially. It will act simultaneously, like a storm that comes from all sides at once, leaving nowhere to run. And then he started showing me. I saw the world after the final, not in peace as deception will promise, in motion, a movement so accelerated, so simultaneous, that most people won't be able to process what's happening before it has already happened. First, I looked at the financial systems, not just one country, several, at the same time, like dominoes falling in a sequence that had been precisely calculated for decades. I saw people in front of ATMs that weren't working. I saw cell phone screens showing balances that didn't match what should have been there. I saw middle-class families, people who had planned their lives, who had savings, who had done everything right according to the system's rules, staring at blank screens, not understanding what had happened. And the faces of those people, they weren't people who were disoriented due to a lack of knowledge. They were people who realized that the rules had changed without anyone telling them. Jesus told me, the system that man built was erected upon trust. And trust is the most fragile thing that exists when it is placed in something that is not myself. When trust in the system is withdrawn, and it will be withdrawn, it will happen at a speed that will make any reaction impossible. In Proverbs 11:28 it is written, "Those who trust in their riches will fall, but the righteous will flourish like foliage." Those who trust in their riches will fall, not because God wants to punish, but because anything built without the right foundation can't withstand the pressure. And the pressure that's coming, it's bigger than anything this generation has ever felt. Secondly, I saw something that disturbed me much more than the financial collapse. I saw health, Jesus showed me illnesses, not one specific illness, several at the same time. Illnesses that doctors won't be able to classify immediately. Illnesses that will appear in different regions of the world with no apparent connection between them. Illnesses that will especially affect those who are in a prolonged state of fear, because fear weakens the body. And what's being prepared for after the final, it's going to generate a level of collective fear that the world has never experienced so simultaneously. Jesus told me the spirit of fear that will be unleashed after that final will be the greatest this generation has ever faced. Not because you are more powerful than I am, but because you will encounter hearts that have been emptied of my presence over years of distraction. And here he quoted something that Paul wrote in 2 Timothy 1:7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and self-control. God has not given us a spirit of cowardice, but what's coming will try to plant exactly that in every home, in every family, in every heart that isn't anchored in something that doesn't waver. Third, I saw something that made me sit on the ground while still within the vision. I saw the children, not with violence, with confusion. I saw children who had grown up hugging the mascots of this World Cup, who had sung the opening ceremony songs without knowing what they were, who had absorbed the symbolic language that had been planted over months of the World Cup, being affected in ways that parents couldn't explain. Nightmares, strange behaviors, fears with no apparent origin, a restlessness that wasn't part of their personality. And Jesus told me with a sadness that broke my heart. The enemy always goes after the children first because they know that a generation captured in childhood is a generation lost in adulthood. And what was planted in the hearts of children during the months of this World Cup will begin to bear fruit in the months following the final in ways that parents won't understand if they don't know what they're seeing. In Mark 10:14, Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these." He didn't say that by chance. I said this because children have a spiritual opening that adults have closed over the years. And this opening can receive light or it can receive darkness. It depends on what is planted in it while it is still open. And what was planted in the children during this World Cup, those who watched without parental discernment, it wasn't light. Fourth, I saw something that nobody was expecting. I saw division within the church. Don't go between different churches. Stay within the same congregation. I saw pastors who had preached the same message for decades, beginning to divide over what had happened in the final. One group saying the light in the sky was from God, another saying it wasn't. One group wanting to welcome the leader who had emerged, another wanting to resist. And I saw members leaving, some going one way, others going another. Families who had sat together on the same bench for years, leaving through different doors. And Jesus told me something I will never forget. The division within the church will not be caused by the enemy. It will be revealed by him, because what is coming will expose what was already there, the cracks that already existed, the disagreements that were swept under the rug, the differences that were ignored for convenience. What is coming will not create the division. It will illuminate the one that already existed. In Amos 3:3 it is written, "Can two walk together unless they are agreed?" No, they don't walk. And many who seem to be together we'll discover they never were when the pressure comes. But here, in the midst of everything that Jesus was showing me, something different happened. He stopped. He turned to me and he said, "Now I'll show you the other side." And it was here that the perspective changed completely. I saw the houses, the same small houses you showed me before, with the candle, with the Bible, with the family gathered together. But this time there were more of them, much more. It was as if each video, each warning, each silent prayer of the previous months had lit a new candle somewhere in the world that I hadn't seen before. I saw houses in Brazil. I saw houses in Portugal. I saw houses in South Africa, in the Philippines, in the United Kingdom, in Canada, in the United States, all with the same candle, with the same peace, with the same presence. And Jesus told me, while the system collapses, while fear spreads, while division exposes what was hidden, these homes will be beacons, not because they are perfect, not because the people inside them are not afraid, but because they chose to anchor themselves in something that doesn't shake when the world shakes. And then he showed me that empty chair again, the same chair you showed me last time. But this time, there was more than one. Several empty chairs around a table, and Jesus pointed to each one and said, "These chairs have owners. They don't know it yet, but what's coming will be what brings each of them home. Sometimes what seems like destruction on the outside is rescue on the inside. Sometimes the storm that seems to want to destroy the house is what brings the lost son back to it. Because when everything the world promised disappears, when the system fails, when health care is shaky, when churches are divided, people will look for something that doesn't wobble. And they will remember you. They will remember that relative who always talked about Jesus, that neighbor who prayed, that friend who shared a video that they ignored at the time. They will knock on the doors of those homes, and you need to be standing when they knock. Jesus told me one last thing before the vision ended. Tell them that double what is coming is not double the despair. It is double the harvest, because the greater the storm, the greater the number of people who will seek the only shelter that does not crumble. And that shelter is you. It is the homes that kept the candle burning. It is the mothers who did not stop praying. It is those who stood when it would have been easier to sit. The world will need you in a way it never has before. Don't let go, not because they need to be strong, but because someone you love will need you to be there for them when they finally decide to stand up. The empty chair won't stay empty forever. He's on his way. She's on her way. He just doesn't know it yet. If you're watching this video and feel there's an empty seat in your family, someone you love who hasn't arrived yet, write it below. Just write it. The seat is reserved. And we'll pray together for each name that's written, because no prayer is ever lost. None. And between now and July 19th, every prayer that rises, every mother who kneels, every exhausted person who still calls on the name of Jesus, he's building something that twice as much as is coming won't be able to tear down. In Romans 8:28 it is written, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." All things, not just the good ones, all of them. The collapse, the fear, the division, the exhaustion, the empty chair. All things work together for the good of those who love God. This is not a vague consolation. It's a promise with a name. And Jesus asked me to put an end to it. Tell them that the exhaustion they feel now is the weight of the mission. It's not a sign that they are failing. It's a sign that they are carrying something real. And what they are carrying will be exactly what will be needed when the second wave breaks. Don't let go. I am here in silence, where I've always been, and I'll stay here until the last one of them gets home. The final of the 2026 World Cup is on July 19th. What comes after this is twice as much as what I said before. But what has Jesus prepared for those who resist? It is infinitely greater than anything the world is promising. A candle in the dark doesn't need to compete with anything. She simply shines. Keep yours burning.